Hi and welcome back to the channel. Today we have part 2 of the Grin Mower review. Some interesting developments. Unlocking the secrets of the Grin Mower. Okay, so what did I discover? Several things as it happens. Firstly, the I told you so moment. The height adjuster. You may remember in part 1, I had a bit of a suspicion that it was going to be too weak, a bit too flexible, and if it got damaged or knocked or caught up in something, it was going to bend and be a problem. Sure enough, you just literally couldn't script it. A strimmer rolled, fell, or whatever on top of that height adjuster bar and bent it lengthways, put torsion in it, made a right mess of it. Naturally, it is bent now. And of course, in the infinite wisdom of whoever designed this thing, as you may also remember, I pointed out that it's riveted into position. The only way to get the rivet off is to grind it off and remove the piece completely, take it over to your bench, straighten it back out and bring it back and put a bolt with a nylock nut on it, as I suggested in part 1, and then connect it again with a slip clip. Why they haven't made it easily on and offable, I don't know, because clearly this is going to happen a lot. It's a weak part of this machine. The machine is really well built. Second point is actually quite positive. Today I've taken it out and used it on some extreme embankments. They were extremely rough, they were very steep, and some of them had very thick grass on it. And I have to say, the mower performed very, very well. It was excellent. Some of the other positive points I noticed on the embankments were the low centre of gravity, the extreme torque that the engine produces. This thing can climb like a mountain goat with blue tack on its hooves. It's incredible. It literally pulling me up the embankments. That was extremely impressive, and you don't get a feel for that on the ground. Yes, I know I've said it's slow, because it is. Position 1 is fine on an embankment that you need to go slow for. Position 2 on the flat is just painful. Anyway, on the embankments, it's a really decent speed, but the power and the torque climbing up those embankments was something to be marvelled at. That was very impressive. Something else I discovered today, probably more through necessity and adaptation than anything else, was that while traversing these embankments, I actually put the mower up to my right and I was stood down the hill. Therefore, I had more control over it, so I could drive it up the hill rather than having to fight it back up the hill if it was slipping down on me. As I was in the lower ground and the machine was on the higher ground, I had to reach up to my right and grab hold of the handlebars, and because of the short format handlebars, this actually worked quite well. Presumably through design, depends on how you use it, but I found that being on the lower ground, reaching up to the right, worked much better for me. Remember in part 1 I said the mower's heavy? It is heavy, it hasn't changed, it's still heavy. However, it's heavy in different ways. Now, if you stand at the back with the short format handlebars like I demonstrated in part 1 and try and lift it on the pivot point, which is the rear wheels, it is heavy because the engine's heavy and the handlebars are short. Fine. However, what I discovered today was there are 2 rubber handles on the Grin. There's one on the front bumper and there's one on the rear cross member between the handlebars, which is situated just behind the engine. If you stand centrally, bearing in mind that the engine is centre mounted for the direct drive from the blade that I told you about in part 1, and you lift, it's actually remarkably manageable. I'm not saying everyone can go and lift it because, you know, it is still a heavy mower, but I found that I could move it enough on my own onto the trailer and off the trailer in the case of my requirement at that time. I quite liked. It was really quite comfortable, but you have to obviously lift it correctly. You're not just going to be able to walk up to it and just hoik it onto the back or something. You have to lift correctly, so please don't go damaging yourself doing that. Okay, so the overall performance on the embankments today, fantastic. You know, hands down, brilliant. It was really, really good. Can't complain about that at all. Much prefer on the embankments and flats, 100%. It's this natural environment, as I said before. If I discover anything new about it, anything that's worth telling you about, I'll come back and give you a little update in part 3. As far as an embankment goes, this is a really, really good embankment mower. I really enjoyed using it today, actually. You know, I forgot all about the awkwardness and the weight of it on the flats. It came into its own on the embankments. On those slopes, it just excelled. It just came into its own. On the flat, yeah, it's a mower. I don't like the manoeuvrability on the flat. Still don't like that much. However, you do get used to it. As I said before in part 1, it is down to muscle memory and what you're used to. If you're used to throwing around a plastic-bodied Honda, then hey, you're going to find it hard. Okay. See you next review. That's about the only thing that you're going to be able to change easy for yourself.